I know, wait, I'm gonna have the rooster help us. Okay.
We are so glad that you're here in our children's room. Welcome to Trust-Based Philanthropy. Welcome to the Giving Circle movement. You are going to find so much joy, so much power, so much authenticity in this space. So we're glad that you're part of this program and that you're tuning in today. I have the pleasure of knowing Pia and being inspired by this woman. She is the first person from whom I learned what trust-based philanthropy really is. And then I realized, oh my God, that's what we do. But she put some language behind it and a real practice. So before we jump into anything, I want us to introduce ourselves because for us, this is really about people. It's really about relationships. It's really about understanding who we are and what matters to us. So, Pia, can you tell us a little bit more about you? What matters to you? What gives you joy? And why you've dedicated your life to this purpose, to this career, to philanthropy in general?
Of course. So I'm honored to be here. My name is Pia Infante. I'm the chair of the Trust-Based Philanthropy Project and the co-executive director of the Whitman Institute, which is a foundation here in San Francisco. And I think I will start by saying I did not think when I was 10 years old, I'm going to grow up and be a funder. What I have always thought is that I am a teacher, I'm a learner, I'm a spiritual seeker. And I think what I'm seeking is to evolve myself and help those around me evolve into like clarity of purpose. And to do it with a dance and a song,
Yes.
I don't do this because it's because I want to grind. I do it because I think we should be done grinding. And I'm from many generations of Filipina women who have been grinding, So I think it's time to return to a different sense of who we are in purpose and joy and love, which is what we're really here to talk about. So, and speaking of purpose and joy and love, I just don't know anyone who exuberantly expresses it more than this woman here, Mash, because she just like is the brightest funder I know, really. So why don't you say a little bit about you, Masha, and how you've come to this place in your journey?
Yes, thank you, Pia. I think today I'm going to start with the fact that I'm an artist. I'm in my son's bedroom. Behind me are paintings that all of our friends and family made for my son, Rue, when he was born. I am a mom. I'm also a dreamer, just like you, Pia. I'm also seeking and learning and growing and making and creating and mostly laughing along the way. I try not to take myself seriously because life is so important to me, and I don't want it to be focused on things like process or paperwork or deadlines or grinding. I want it to be really centered on my joy, and those dreams that I have for myself and my family. I'm also just like a crazy, radical, creative person who wants us to dig deep and reimagine what this future, collective future of ours looks like, and I came into philanthropy also not planned. I was an organizer in Chicago and I was in graduate school, and then I worked at a restaurant for many years, and I needed to pay the bills, and I could no longer, because I come from an immigrant family, work in the nonprofit sector. So I stumbled upon a foundation in philanthropy and have stayed at the Latino Community Foundation because we are very different than what other funders look like. We're not endowed. No one has written us a check for $1 million, not yet. We're on it. Not $1 million, $100 million. But we've been building this from scratch, imagining what a community foundation can look like when it's truly accountable to the people. We're building this model, of putting people at the center of our work. And that's why we've been so successful. So I've stayed this long. I should be on sabbatical right now. It's my 8-year anniversary. But the pandemic hit and everything has changed. So here we are on Zoom talking about trust-based philanthropy. But it is a passion of mine because I want people to feel seen, to feel heard, to feel understood, especially our grassroots leaders who are on the front line fighting the multiple pandemics of poverty, of racism, of COVID-19, but also just the crisis that we're in. So, Pia, maybe before you jump in to say what for you is trust-based philanthropy, what I really want to say is like, how are you feeling in this moment? You know, like I don't think we can just jump straight into the work because so much has changed, you know? What are you feeling and what are you learning?
Well, you know, like you, I'm also parenting a toddler during the multiple pandemics, and it has me in, you know, sometimes just frazzled. Just, I don't even, it's like Humpty Dumpty fell off the wall and I put myself back together and my, you know, ear is up here and my nose on my shoulder, you know, so yeah, let me ask you really quick. If you fell off the wall, how would you reassemble? Like, where would your parts be? So in a way, that kind of disarray can be good for a perfectionist like me. I am also an immigrant child. I'm an oldest daughter, and I think I was taught to perform in a particular way. You know, perform my capability, perform, you know, my hardworkingness, perform that I can kind of, you know, keep it graceful and cool, like no matter what's happening. And I have experienced a lot of moments of not being graceful or cool during COVID era. And I think it's good for me. The two things I was reflecting on coming into this particular conversation, which is about the exciting promise of starting giving circles, generative, regenerative economics of giving circles, not waiting for anyone to write us a check, not waiting for Mark Zuckerberg to, you know, turn it around and write checks or anything like that, but to create and generate our own power. And as I think about that, I think about like, what is the creative energy behind that? And so the two poles that I feel right now are rage, you know, like the rage and grief of the deep injustice of our time, and joy. Because it's really hard, as you know, Masha, not to experience joy. Pretty much you're tickled 24/7 by a toddler, you know?
That's right.
And so I feel like, but what do I want to power my sense of purpose, you know? So what I'm coming to in the moment is I don't want to dampen my rage and grief because it is real. You know, I've lost my uncle and my nephew, like literally to the intersecting crises of race, poverty, and COVID-19, like you said, lost lives, you know, and I know many around the world have had this direct experience. So I don't want to dampen that or pretend it's not happening. So I need to find ways to express that. And you talked about creativity. I think about also just like physical expression, like running, kicking, you know, sometimes screaming into the wind, you know, like just letting it live, right? As opposed to stuffing it. And then joy itself, which I've heard is, it's like one of the most vulnerable things we can feel. Because when we feel joy, we're not masked in any way. There's no pretend, there's no pantomime, there's no faking. It's just joy is so clear. It's like a bell. It's just so clear. And so I think for the moment, I'm okay with my sense of purpose and power and why I do this being fueled by both. I think that's happening for me right now. Sometimes I get up and I'm like, I want to fight because of the rage and the grief. And then sometimes I can relax into, despite all of this, I know deeply that this love that we have for humanity, and this joy that is our natural state, you know, it does prevail, and it will, you know, in a systemic way prevail. So that's what's happening with me. And I'd love to hear what you're hanging with right now. Like, what's in the wind for you?
Yeah. I mean, I feel that a lot of what you said really resonates. I also lost my grandma during COVID and I flew home to Ohio to be with my parents. So she was our matriarch, she was our rock. We were born on the same day and we were so close. Yeah, she is the one that came to this country at 66. Didn't really want to come because she was running a hospital in Russia. And was about to reap the benefits of communism, but she did it for us, and she learned a new language. She became a cleaning lady. She started taking care of people. I remember folks wouldn't believe that she's a doctor because their English was so broken, and they would remove the doctor from her name. And it would upset me, but my grandma's like, those people, they don't define who I am. Nobody can take away like my dignity and my strength. They have no idea who I am and what I'm capable of. So when I think to my grandma and just like the joy of walking into her house was literally like the kitchen was the first we walked into. And although it was small, she was just always in the kitchen cooking. And always stuffing like our bags and like our, like, we couldn't leave the house without some kind of like present, which was food. So she fed our spirit. And I realized, like, reflecting back on her, that she taught us so much through food. She shared stories, she asked us questions, she listened. She showed us so much love. She was obsessed about her grandkids in this country. So I am sitting with that, all the lessons and blessings and hardship. And I am at this point in my life where I've made her proud, and I should just sit in that, because I think as immigrant kids, it's like, it took a really long time for my dad to say, I'm proud of you, you're doing a good job. So now it's really about me, the next chapter, and stepping and owning the full like power of who I am. And the things in life that really drive me, which is people, and art and power, like, if at the foundation we can merge all those things, man, it's like the world is aligned and it's magic. So I want to sit in that magic of what I really truly want. And giving circles have taught me so much of like what is possible when we look to ourselves and each other rather than to some other place that is going to help us be a better grandmaker. Mm-hmm. So sorry, that was a really long answer. I'm
I'm so sorry you lost her in this time. I lost her in one way, always.
That's right.
Her in so many, and she's, you are her.
That's right.
Like, born on her birthday. All of what you just said sounds a lot like you. Like, I can't leave Amasha. In fact, I don't know how you're going to do it, but I know that I'm going to get some kind of like chocolate love gift or something.
Yes. Yes.
Just from this interaction. But thank you for sharing that. I'm glad we're here, because I think you and I both have a liberatory practice of relationship. And that is what we believe truly is philanthropy, whether you call it trust-based philanthropy or equity-based philanthropy or grantee-centric philanthropy, whatever you call it. What we do is the practice of relationship and liberatory relationship. And I think that's what giving circles are. So one of our thoughts to you, dear audience, as you are sitting and laughing and crying with us, is, just imagine like your most trusted relationship in life. Just for a moment, the first one that comes to mind, your most trusted relationship. And let that person kind of fill you the way Masha's grandmother just filled us all up. Let's just dwell in that for a moment. The most trusted relationship that you have in your life. That person might not even be on the planet anymore, but the qualities of those relationships are so imbued in how we walk in the world and how we're able to walk in the world.
That's right.
So Masha, just throw out, what are some qualities of that relationship?
Yeah, I mean, I thought of my husband, and I thought of his ability to like deeply listen,
Yeah.
I am way more distracted than he is. He's like really there listening to me, hearing me, like really, truly hearing me. And that makes me feel valued. That makes me feel like I matter, and that he cares so much. And it makes me feel like someone really has my back, Mm-hmm. And I think in the world, like, of moving so fast and, working at the speed of light constantly from one meeting to the other. I asked my roommate this morning because she is a nonprofit leader, and I said, what is your least favorite relationship in the funder world and most favorite, and she started with the least. She said, these people, we've known them for 9 years and they still ask me the same question. They've never read an application or a report. And it's exhausting to answer their question over and over again. It's like they don't hear us, right? Or care. So I think for me, I went directly to that place of being heard and understood and cared for. What about you, Tia?
Wait, I want to hear what she said was the best relationship. What did she say?
The best, she said, Hellman Foundation. Our good friend,
Nice.
Pedrito, and Betsy, because they feel like they're in deep, deep friendship and relationship, and that they care about the people first and foremost. They love getting updates when there is huge challenge and like a real opportunity to do something differently. Hellman has been the one to step up and say, we can figure this out. We can introduce you to someone. We have power. We have relationship. Let's figure this out together.
Lovely. That's lovely. So in terms of my most trusted relationship, I immediately go to my BFF from college, Nat, and I wonder, what is it that just, I almost like, as soon as even I hear her voice on the phone, I literally like all my molecules just relax.
Mm.
And I think it's because she's has a practice with me of telling the truth without judgment. I have a very inner critic, a very judgy Filipina mom voice in my head. And I think having a BFF who also really is a deep listener and also a truth teller in the most kind of loving and discerning way. So meaning she's not someone who's just like agrees with me about everything or never reflects back to me things that I need to hear. Yeah. But she does it in a way that it's not critical and judgmental. It's more like she like dips into the water and just holds up these rocks and she's like, so here's what I see. What do you see? So I think it's a combination of like non-judgmental truth telling, the listening, and I think the other quality of this relationship, which is very relevant between donors and recipients of funds, is it feels very equal, meaning like we both are our full selves and we both allow the other one to be their full self. So no one has to shrink or grow too big, if that makes sense. There's a Buddhist concept of like, we often think we're like tiny and insignificant, or we think we're like huge and all powerful, but really there's like this right size way we can be in the world that we're both contributing and also receiving. And I think that quality, like how can I be giving and then how can I be receiving, is this to me, that's the quality of a relationship that feeds me, that I keep going back to. And that's what we want at the center of any philanthropy.
Yes.
Nothing performative, nothing where someone's just getting to exercise their ego and power, maybe because they have been traumatized or harmed and they now are in a position to have some power and now they're enacting these yucky power dynamics. But actually that if we try to mimic the most reciprocal relationship we have, that's how we want to be as donors and partners, right?
That's beautiful. I love that. I mean, my next question is, what is trust-based philanthropy? But you basically answered that.
I think I
love that. Yeah. Is there anything else? Yeah.
Well, it has deep roots in the actual relationship between my foundation and our grantee partners. So the other thing I'll say about it is that it's long-term. I think sometimes funding cycles can be very short, 12 months, 18 months. Some of our partners we've been funding for the entire time we've been grant making, over 10 years. So there's something about longevity and longevity of commitment. Because, you can't have a relationship of trust if it's sort of like this. I'll be friends with you this year, but I'm going to assess you at the end of the year, Masha, and then I'll see if I want to be friends with you in 2021. That's not relationship. And if we have to break it off, because sometimes we do, we talk about the challenges of kind of the expectations that are created by this kind of love-centric relational grant making. But I think that making clear longer term commitments, like 3 years, 5 years. It gives also people a sense of being able, like I said before, to relax into the relationship versus feeling like I have to prove my worthiness over and over again. So that's the other aspect of trust-based philanthropy. I think it is, we make clear long-term commitments in, relationships of mutual learning and regard. So we do that. And then basically we're creating the conditions for everybody to learn something, for everybody to give something, for everyone to be part of something wonderful, even if sometimes we fall on our face. So that's my, sensibility about it.
Yeah.
I really respect, Masha, the way Latino Community Foundation and you specifically practice a liberatory relationship as a funder. And so I'm wondering if you would also
Yeah.
put your kind of like Masha LCF lens on it, because I often see you all out in the world or now online on Zoom or Instagram or something, and I'm just always cheering for you. And I'm always like, they're just taking trust-based philanthropy and just like moving it into this realm of radical imagination that I love. I just really adore.
Mhm. Yeah, I guess in this moment, I'm reflecting back on when I first started and how we didn't have a lot of money to give. Um, and I was actually a graduate fellow at LCF doing my work with USF, and I saw our website, and because I'm an artist and a storyteller, I saw the photos on the website, and I'm like, that is not representative of what I see of the Latino community. I see so much vibrancy, so much love and joy, and just like this entrepreneurial fire, and that's not captured. I feel you. I'm also yawning inside.
It's not what you're saying.
I know,
It's
right?
late
It's just
night.
life. It's a baby. So in my desire to capture the authentic story of who Latino immigrants are in this state, I started going to visit the nonprofits and listening to them, learning about them, and then taking their pictures. That was kind of like the first thing I did at LCF, right? Um, and that simple act of like me taking their photo, and my favorite way to take someone's photo is when they're fully relaxed, when they feel beautiful, when they feel like they don't have to look a special way, but that they're calm, right? So I'm always asking them questions, getting them to, make jokes, and then I capture their brilliance. And I realized in those moments that I am building a relationship first and foremost. Like it is through that relationship that trust is established, that you can relax, and then I can capture who you truly are, right? Um, I didn't have money to grant out to any of these groups. I just wanted to capture who they were and build a relationship. Um, and I would do that with everyone that I met. I at times felt nervous, like, man, we can't fund all these incredible people. But we would find a way. And eventually, I think like 5 years later, one of the grantees said, like, Masha, this check means the world to me. This $25,000 unrestricted gift from you means the world, but I want you to know that the thing that you did with our organization, the way that you asked our young people who they were, what wakes them up in the morning, like cared about them as people, that was the most powerful. That the money is really nice, but the way you make us feel seen, respected, heard, you amplify us, you feature us without even telling us, that makes us feel loved. And when we feel loved, we are powerful, beyond any measure. So I think for me, it started in those first few years, getting to know leaders and me deeply understanding that money is not going to change the world. That yes, investments matter and our grassroots, but it is the relationships that we have with our leaders that matters even more. And it's a thing that we learned at LCF, through our Giving People movement, with our donors to really be in relationship. I don't want our donors to feel like they're just like an ATM machine.
Right.
If we don't want transactional relationships, then we shouldn't treat anybody as if they're transactions. So it's the same thing. I'm the one on funder calls with donors saying, like, hold on, like let's back up. Tell me who you are. Like, how are you feeling, truly feeling. And people are so like they feel different. They come alive and they say, oh my God, we wasted so much time talking about ourselves as people. Let's get to the work. And I think there's a lot of unlearning, you know, it's this kind of corporate mentality of like, no, the work begins when we just start doing. And for me, as a community organizer, the most important work is building relationship, building trust, getting to know each other. So that is embedded into, I think, everything we do at LCF. Like we are really centered on values. You know, when we say we want change in our charity, we mean it. Like we don't want someone to save us. We don't need handouts. We want partnership. We want investment from the rest of the world, and we are willing to do the same with others. We have to practice what we preach.
Mm-hmm.
I think we're in such a unique position because we raise money every single day. I know what it's like to have the worst funder. I know what it's like for people to cancel on me. Like I flew to LA and someone 10 minutes before our meeting, a funder said, "Sorry, Masha, I don't have time for this." And I sat outside and I was like, man,
Yeah.
like that. And they know that I don't live in the area. They know that I was flying in from San Francisco, you know. I know what it feels like for a funder to just like
Yeah.
constantly be on top of me and say, no, Masha, this is missing this document and that document. And your staff misspelled something in the proposal. And it's like, oh my God, you know? And I also know the flip side of a relationship when someone says, man, I've been watching your work and I love what you're doing. And we are honored to invest in that and lift it up. So I think, you know, at LCF, the most important thing is going back to purpose, going back to why are we doing this, you know, and knowing that, you know, money is just one piece of the pie, you know, like it's one piece of the puzzle. It's not our only tool in the toolbox, you know. There's, I think at the end of the day, people change the world, not a grant, you know. So I want to back up here and ask you, because the people who are tuning in today are launching giving circles and they're learning and they get to practice trust-based philanthropy and really put people first. What would you recommend that they think about and that they don't forget? Like it's like 2 or 3 things to always be mindful of if you really want to practice trust-based philanthropy.
Yeah. I was just thinking about lifting out exactly some of the pieces from what you just said, so that I think that sometimes when we're in the position to be grantors, we think we have to be really responsible here. And so we might want to copy what, you know, another foundation or another application process that a giving circle has. And I want to say none of that is true. Like we get you know, you listeners, you leaders, like many of you women who are practicing probably already like a feminist way of leadership, right? We don't have to revert back to some kind of weird academy or bureaucracy. Like we can actually just make up a process or like a way of doing this that is right, you know?
That's right, yeah.
And that rightness can come through a conversation, through walking with someone through their work, you know, their work day, right? It doesn't have to be them supplicant application reporting, right? Like some of the things Masha was saying is like not necessarily helpful tools that philanthropy sort of puts out there as generic, everybody should do them, or best practice. I think instead of best practice, I think we should think about a values and purpose infused approach and practice, right? So it's what makes sense in your community. Like what is, maybe it is you just hang out for a couple hours with someone during their team meeting or during their program work, and that's the way that you're both learning and that's the way you're making decisions. I think one of the other things is to be, at least for the first, you know, period of time, be very clear about what you're looking to support. You know, what is it, an issue? Is it some organizing around? Is it just very place-based? Like, do you really want to strengthen like your specific neighborhood or community? So before even starting to talk to people, like getting very clear with the circle, like what are we, and you don't have to commit to it forever, right? Just for this one cycle, let's say it's a 3-year cycle, I would encourage us to really think about multi-year commitments, which I know is difficult when you have to fundraise every year for the year. But just think about that. Think about how we can make longer term commitments, even if it means slightly fewer dollars. It's just so that they know that they get to be in this relational field with you, and get that support that's beyond the check, right? There's a lot that we can give in addition to money. Masha and LCF are an incredible example of that. So just thinking about time, terms, like thinking about what you want to support, and then start the other lens I would put on it, given the times that we're in, is we as a foundation really commit to resourcing under-resourced leadership. So like Latino, Black, women's, queer, like we look for the people in our community that are kicking ass, but they're not getting funding dollars, right? So I think that's where giving circles are so amazing.
That's
You
right.
don't have to follow the funder darlings. You can create your own giving circle partners where we really center it, like you said, we're centering it on relationship, Masha, and we're centering it on purpose. We're centering it on what the change we want to support looks like, whatever that is in your context, in your space. And so I think getting clear about that, and then starting to look and listen. You heard Masha talk about just going to Latino Community Foundation's partners and starting to listen to them, right? I mean, it may have been like, oh, I want to take pictures of your work, but really it was like a listening project. So that's what we do first. Sometimes when we have a little bit of money, we start to think that we want to direct, and I think that a wonderful stance of trust-based philanthropy is to listen first. So we're listening and we're then responding in a way that's like commensurate to what's being asked for.
That's right.
And sometimes people are not going to ask you for what you think they're going to ask you for. Like when we asked our grantees, what should we do with our final 10 years? We kind of thought they'd say, well, take your endowment and split it up amongst us. We're good. But they actually said, we know your funding is going to go away, but can you go out and find other funders like LCF that walk the talk like you do, and just create a larger group of funders that practice these principles? That's right. And so that's what we're doing with ourselves, which is very different from what we thought. So it's always like, don't assume that we know what our community or our constituents are going to say or ask for. Like always listen first. And I think those are some good guidelines for kind of starting or continuing the work that we're doing. The other thing I'll just throw in there, because hanging out with LCF is literally like a party, like the best kind of party, the party where you talk to people you've never talked to, where you kind of make BFFs with this like totally like random person from the other side of the street, like just like a party. And so just make it fun. And I'm going to toss it to you, Masha, for like, how do we cultivate like the love and fun and joy of community in our practice? Because if we're not having a wonderful, amazing time giving, like, why are we doing it? We're doing it in this weird Catholic guilt way. We're doing,
oh yes,
we have to go there. Like we can actually generate the community that we want to live in with both how we practice and how we give. So I'm going to give it to you, Masha, just to close this out with like, what are you're a giving circle leader. Like how do you inform what's happening around the world here?
Yeah. I mean, you talk about fun, and it is by far the best recruitment tool. Okay. So those of you in this giving circle who are thinking of growing and starting, if people aren't having fun, you're going to have a really hard time bringing folks back. We're all really busy. The people that you might be recruiting are in corporate America, or they're a lawyer, stay-at-home mom, or someone on Univision, like they're tired. So what do they want to do at the end of a long week? They want to connect with other people, to share joy, to feel free, to be liberated, to be themselves, to share food and make jokes and do something meaningful, right? So that's my like number one advice. It's always fun and joy. Because when there's fun, there's purpose. The other thing I want to say is, like people was talking about, don't look to other people for best practices. This is your chance to reimagine what philanthropy, the love of humanity, can actually be. And my advice is keep it simple. People don't want to fill out really long applications. They don't want to be put on the spot and grilled about like how they measure their impact. And at the end of the grilling presentation, you might be able to give them $3,000. Like that's not what our leaders need. I remember in our grants night, like we vote on people, they come, and we have 3 organizations that pitch. And I used to always come beforehand and say, hey guys, this leader is incredible. Like they deserve money no matter what. How you show up in this pitching session really matters to them, you know? If you are just taking notes the whole time and reviewing the docket and not giving them eye contact, it feels really shitty, you
Mm-hmm.
know? People are coming to pitch to 25 donors, they're nervous, you know? Give them eye contact. Don't ask them the first question like, how do you measure impact? Why are you successful? Say, how are you feeling? What are you proudest of? What
Mm-hmm.
gets you up in the morning? Why are you fighting for this community, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's in the details too of how we treat each other and to be mindful of the power dynamic. We're people with resources and you're asking folks to come in and apply for those resources and then present themselves, you know? Many times we've had grantees leave and say, that was so validating. That was so fun. I felt so respected. I don't even care how much money you give me, but what you just gave me inside of my body feels transformational, you know? And then they say, I want to join a giving circle. I want to replicate what you just gave me. I want to pass that on to others because it feels amazing, right? I think foundations and corporate funders, like that's what's missing. And it's also evolving because now they see there's a new model. So for me, the reminder for everybody who's part of this movement is that you are going to lead a revolution of how people treat each other, how we fund and support movements. So lead with your heart. Go back to why you even want to do this in the first place, right?
Mm-hmm.
I served in the Peace Corps, and the first thing that they told us was, you're not going to change the world here. Like, you are 21 years old. The only thing you know is like how to work a computer. You might have a business degree, and you're going to rural Guatemala, and like those skills no longer apply. You know, the best thing you can do is listen, find the leaders who exist, and lift them up, push them up, and build relationships with the kids, and show up and learn from each other. That's how we're going to change the world. So sometimes I go back to that. You know, there's been so much bad international, like global development, but we practice some of those same really harmful practices of like, I know best because I have money and I have power. No, I don't. And we can be equal. What Pia said in the beginning is like, if we come into this as real partners and people who think we can both learn from one another, then we actually can.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I was thinking as you were speaking, Masha, that the one quality we haven't said out loud, but I think that is demonstrated in everything we're saying is humility. Like a humility and understanding
Right.
that the role of a radical revolutionary funder is not to be the most vociferous, smartest expert. It's to
That's
be
right.
a humble, good listener, a great collaborator, and a
Mm,
really good cheerleader.
that's
Like
right.
it goes back to I have my roots as a teacher, and I remember I had a student named Ruthie in the Bronx, um, who I always thought like she could be like a fantastic student, but she just never comes to class. And I made all these assumptions about Ruthie. And I said, if I were just a better teacher, like I had no humility about it. I felt like I could fix her grades, fix her academic career. Turned out Ruthie was taking care of 4 siblings. The youngest was like 3 years old. And the reason she was always late or didn't come to class was because she was literally parenting her siblings. And it was the most humbling. I get really emotional thinking about Ruthie because I think she taught me the stance I want to have as a teacher, as a facilitator, as a funder. Is
That's right.
I don't know what's best for Ruthie, but I can pay attention to
Mm-hmm.
what she's really experiencing in life and find a way to be helpful. And I did. I found a way to be helpful once I really understood her context. It was less about me molding Ruthie into the kind of student I thought she should be, and much more about Ruthie becoming already, she was on the trajectory to become this amazing person, already was an amazing person. Like, how can I help this amazing person?
That's
Just
right.
like keep flying, keep feeling unfettered by, all of the stuff we were talking about before. And so when
I
I think
love it.
that, I think the stance that we want to end on here is that, we talked about purpose. Maybe you have a sense of purpose about why you want to start a giving circle, what kind of change you want to see. The last thing I want to say is our role. What is
Right.
our role? And the metaphor that, that works for me is supporter, cheerleader, co-learner, right?
Mm,
which is very different from expert,
That's
director,
right.
evaluator, like what Masha was saying. We are not here to evaluate them, but we're here to truly deeply understand like the challenges they face and how to support them as best we can from where we sit.
That's
So,
right.
to be
So
continued, but I think that we can kind
yeah,
of end on this note, Masha.
yeah, totally. The other thing I would also add is yes, always center yourself in your purpose. And, don't come at this with pity or guilt. You know, when you come and you say, "I feel bad for X, Y, and Z," our people don't want pity. You know, they don't want you to save them or feel bad or sorry for them. You know, what they want is for you to understand them, to come and be in relationship. You know, I think our leaders want to feel seen, heard, respected more than anything.
Mhm.
So I, as we close out this session, let's all close our eyes. And I think this is helpful for P and I too, again, in this busy life with children at home and the pandemic, to really center ourselves back on our purpose. Why do we want to do this work? Why are we in philanthropy? What is driving us? So take a moment, and if you have a pen and paper, let's write that down together so that if you feel like you're going through a challenge or you want to quit the circle or you're exhausted or or you disagree with other people, like come back to this purpose.
Mhm. I'll be right back, Masha. I'm getting a prop.
I got props everywhere.
Okay. I love. Okay. This is dope. I already feel like I'm in New Orleans right now.
How do we take a screenshot? I'm so bad at tech.
Yeah, no, I'm gonna take a photo of it for my phone. Sorry, y'all. You're just gonna have to deal with
Yeah,
our.
bear with us.
Okay. Okay. I got it. Love you. Okay. I'm gonna end with this last comment, but I'm just gonna also say,
Okay.
Masha, I could do this with you all day long, every day, 365. You are literally one of my favorite leaders in this work. And I
Ditto.
bow to you and want to be you when I grow up. But I'll just end with your beautiful question about like coming back to why are we doing this? Why are we putting our energy, our life energy, our attention, our precious time at this point into philanthropy? And I can't wait to hear all of your answers, dear audience, but I will just show you.
Oh.
This is Lania Kea Amal Infante Hatch, born on my maternal grandmother's birthday. So her great grandmother's birthday, same birthday. So back to grandmother's. I do this work because I feel like, particularly the women in my family, have inherited multi-generational sense of abandonment and inadequacy. And when I think about these incredible women in my family, none of whom have had these like, big careers that you read about, in the Atlantic or something like that on in either country. I think about who they are and what they've given to our family and to our community and to kind of the lineage. And I think I'm doing this work to heal backwards, like into this ancestral line that is,
Mm.
we have, patriarchy isn't new, colonialism isn't new, right? None of this stuff is brand new. Some of the things that Americans are waking up to have been, a globalized colonial imperialist many hundreds of years experience. And it has taken a toll on us despite our resilience, right? So I feel like I'm in this work to heal backwards multiple generations of I'm trying to find the right word, of integrating this idea that somehow we're not good enough,
Good enough, yeah.
you know, and then also to heal forward,
That's
um,
right.
to this one's life and to all the descendants that will come from her, you know. um, and I'm just one, you know, I'm just one node in so many generations of spiritual seeking and work to reclaim our dignity and our true right inheritance, our
That's
true
right.
natural state.
That's right.
So that's why I'm here, and I can't wait to join your giving circles. Um,
I
and
love it.
I will also say that I'm here on this specific call because anything Masha asks me to do, I say yes. So
I love this call because all the answers I could have said, I didn't go there. I felt like I was listening so deeply to you and so inspired by what you're saying. And it also reminds me of my inner child. I came to this country, I didn't speak any English. I went to a small private school, a Jewish school, and I didn't speak Hebrew or English. And I was made fun of a lot. And I brought my smelly food from, my grandma's house. And I wore ridiculous outfits all the time. And when I think back on those moments, there's so much pain and so much hurt. I cried constantly. But now I also look back in those moments and think there were a few people that really took care of me. They saw me. They told me that I belonged. They said that what I was feeling was valid. So now I look back and I say, man, those people really changed my life. And I want to be one of those people that make sure that nobody feels alone in the corner, or feels like they don't belong somewhere. So that's my life's purpose, is to pass that on, and to also turn that challenge into purpose, deep, deep purpose. So Pia, I love you so much. You are so brilliant. You are like, I could just listen to you answer any question. I love that we both have babies at home and that we're committed to humanity, to the love of humanity, which is philanthropy. So thank you for the how you lead, not just what you are building. You're amazing, and so blessed that you joined us, and so blessed that all these giving circles have an opportunity to sit in this very different, unique training where it's really about storytelling, and have fun, everybody. Don't forget.
tell us your stories. We want to hear them. I can't wait to hear them and see them and experience them. And I already feel the level, the ripples of change that you all, even just by asking this question, how do I do this? It's so inspiring. And my guess is that you will take this way further, than even this project has imagined. So thank you for being you. We see you, we love you, we know who you are. You're it,
That's right.
You're the change, you're the joy, you're the love, you're the radical imagination.
That's right.
So
follow your heart. I love you, Pia. Thank you, everybody.